At the peak of his career, Dan Blocker had everything most actors spend a lifetime trying to achieve: financial stability, genuine admiration, and a television role that offered a sense of lasting purpose. That very success made his sudden end feel even more shocking. There was no tense buildup, no warning sign of disaster, only a quiet belief that life would eventually return to normal. But normal never arrived. What came next was abrupt, crushing, and left behind an emptiness that only grew louder as time moved on. Dolphia Blocker could have easily become the public face of her husband's tragic loss. Instead, she chose something much rarer: complete retreat from the public eye. Her decision to stay out of the story turned their final chapter into one of Hollywood's most quietly heartbreaking moments. Dan Blocker was raised in tough circumstances, but grew into a beloved gentle giant. While Michael Landon's character Little Joe won viewers over with charm and good looks, it was Blocker's Haas Cartwright who truly stole hearts. The big, shy, somewhat naive, but endlessly warm Cartwright brother had something special. There was a tenderness, a humbleness, and an innocence mixed with puppy dog charm that made him impossible not to adore. That same spirit came straight from the man playing him. Blocker was born on December 10, 1928, in DeKalb, Texas, weighing an incredible 14 pounds. Even today, he still holds the record as the largest baby ever born in Bowie County. In a sense, his life started as a story people couldn't stop telling, and that pattern never really faded. When he was young, his parents moved the family to O'Donnell, a small town of about 800 people surrounded by open ranch land. His father had lost his farm during the Great Depression and opened a small grocery store. The family lived in rooms behind the shop, and Dan helped by carrying groceries to customers' cars. His father joked that he should pay others to hire Dan because the boy was so big he kept breaking things in the store. Nobody realized back then that his size would one day become his greatest strength. Saturday nights were the big event in O'Donnell, and the entertainment often featured Dan himself. Word spread that if anyone wanted to test their strength, Dan would be waiting. They would rope off part of Main Street, and he would take on anyone brave enough to step up. According to Blocker, he never lost a single fight. As a teenager, he weighed around 275 pounds, and he knew exactly what he could do. He was so confident that he once claimed he could beat heavyweight champion Floyd Patterson with just a few months of training. That confidence wasn't empty talk. At 13, he joined the Texas Military Institute and played linebacker on the football team. He was so good that he earned a scholarship to Sul Ross State University, where he planned to study English and keep playing football. By 18, he stood 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighed nearly 300 pounds, and he would get even bigger over time. But then fate took a twist. The school's drama club needed someone strong enough to move heavy prop dummies for a production of Arsenic and Old Lace. Dan was perfect for the job. Then someone suggested he take a small role as Teddy Brewster, the eccentric nephew. That single moment on stage changed his life. The audience reaction, the energy, the feeling of being truly seen, it grabbed him completely. He switched his major from English to theater and never looked back. After graduating, he turned down offers to play professional football and headed east to chase a dream he hadn't even known he had. He worked in summer stock and repertory theater, slowly building his skills until he landed a small Broadway role in King Lear. It was the start of something bigger, though the path would take an unexpected detour. In late 1950, Blocker was drafted into the U.S. Army during the Korean War. He trained at Fort Polk in Louisiana and then in Sapporo, Japan, before being sent to Korea with the 45th Infantry Division. He rose to the rank of sergeant. His unit saw intense fighting, and on May 25th, their patrol walked into a communist ambush deep behind enemy lines. Outnumbered and pinned down, the Americans chose to fight. When one soldier was wounded and trapped under heavy fire, Blocker held his position for over 4 hours, returning fire against machine guns, mortars, and small arms. His actions kept the enemy back, though the wounded soldier did not survive. After 209 straight days on the front lines, Blocker was hospitalized for combat wounds and credited with saving the lives of others in his unit. One soldier who served under him later described Blocker as strong, athletic, loud in the best way, friendly with everyone, and a natural leader who could crush a beer can between two fingers while still looking after every man under his command. When producer David Dortort chose him to play Haas Cartwright on Bonanza, everything changed. Dan put his doctoral studies on hold and became a full-time actor. If Little Joe was the heartthrob, Haas was the heartbeat, the emotional center holding the Cartwright family together. Bonanza wasn't an instant hit. Ratings were so low that NBC considered canceling it after one season, partly because of its Saturday night time slot competing with Perry Mason. But the network believed in the show. They moved it to Sunday nights at 9 p.m., and everything clicked. The audience grew, ratings soared, and the show ran for 13 more seasons. Filming in color cost about $15,000 per episode, a huge amount at the time, but NBC executive Thomas Sarnoff promised to keep production on budget and did so. Bonanza survived and exploded into one of the most beloved shows in television history, with Blocker's Haas at the center. Haas Cartwright was a towering man, 6'4" and over 300 pounds, yet gentle, awkward, funny, and endlessly kind. He tripped over his words, stumbled into trouble, wore his heart on his sleeve, and viewers fell in love instantly. The nickname Haas was a playful twist on horse, meaning big as a horse. But what truly sealed it was how completely Blocker disappeared into the role. To millions, Haas felt like a real person. Yet the great contradiction is that in real life, Dan Blocker was nothing like the slow, simple ranch hand he played. He was highly educated with a master's degree, a former schoolteacher, thoughtful, well-read, deeply religious as a Free Methodist, and politically progressive. But despite their differences, Blocker and Haas shared one enormous trait: deep compassion. Blocker believed in kindness, fairness, and standing up for what was right, and that belief shaped everything he brought to Haas. Off camera, Blocker's toughness showed in unexpected ways. Once, thrown violently from a horse, he fractured his collarbone. Instead of going to the hospital, he set the bone himself, climbed back on, and finished the scene. He personally despised firearms, a hatred born from a terrifying night in Korea when he realized how powerless a person becomes when someone else holds a weapon. He owned no guns and wouldn't even let his sons go hunting. On the Bonanza set, Blocker found a genuine family, especially close to Lorne Greene and Michael Landon. Their bond was so deep that Blocker served as best man at Landon's wedding. Despite his fame, Blocker never forgot where he came from. He moved his parents to California, but his hometown of O'Donnell never stopped claiming him. By the mid-1960s, Blocker had reached a place most actors only dream of, yet he had little interest in being famous. He loved acting, but not the recognition. He and Dolphia lived quietly in a modest 4-bedroom home in Northridge, far from Hollywood's glitter. The constant attention bothered him. Strangers would grab his arm or hug him without asking. He valued privacy. Fame disrupted his family life. Even taking the kids for ice cream became a public event. At home, he was a playful father who would burst through the door and jokingly shove past his sons to reach their electric racetrack. He never lost his sense of play. Blocker made the remarkable decision to move his family to Lugano, Switzerland, after falling in love with photographs in National Geographic. In Lugano, he found peace, anonymity, and a slower pace of life. He could walk down the street as just Dan, not Haas Cartwright. That quiet life meant more to him than any amount of fame. In 1972, Blocker returned to the U.S. to begin work on the final season of Bonanza. He felt weak and unusually tired. Doctors discovered his gallbladder needed removal, a routine surgery. It appeared to go smoothly, and he was sent home to recover. Then, hours later, he became dizzy and complained of severe pain. Dolphia rushed him back to the hospital, but he never came out. Dan Blocker died from a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot that traveled to his lungs. He was just 43 years old. The shock was instant and devastating. His wife lost her partner, 4 children lost their father, and the cast lost a brother. Dolphia faced a crossroads. She could have become a public figure, given interviews, turned his fame into her own platform. Instead, she stepped completely away from the spotlight. She raised their children, protected their privacy, and preserved Dan's memory with dignity. She never remarried, never sought attention, and lived quietly and deliberately, just as they always had. She passed away quietly as well, leaving behind children and grandchildren who carried forward the values she and Dan had lived by.